Hey everybody, welcome back to the FreeMind Network podcast where the real conversations happen, completely unfiltered, completely unscripted, and without an agenda. Today's episode is one of the most raw and thought-provoking conversations I've had on this show. I'm sitting down with Bradley Rausch, founder of Level Up Influence. We're unpacking the hidden struggles behind relationships, mental health, and personal growth in today's world. We talk about the real challenges of self-improvement, why so many people, including ourselves at various points, have been stuck in cycles of avoidance, and how social media has completely reshaped the way we connect with other people. Bradley also shares his personal story and his journey from dropping out of college, building a business, battling anxiety, and navigating relationships in a way that makes sense to him and to others. This isn't a surface-level conversation. I want to warn everybody. We get into the tactical, we get into the step-by-step ways to build a stronger relationship, manage your emotions, and stop running from discomfort. If you've ever felt lost in the noise of self-help advice, this episode is for you. So let's just jump right in. Hey, Bradley, how you doing, man?
Hey, I am good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. All right, Bradley, I'm going to jump it off, and I like to start everything out with a little bit of backstory. So kind of walk me through your journey that led you into the career path and the business that you're at today. And don't worry about too many specifics. I'll ask a few more specific questions at the end, but kind of jump right in and as much of a general overview as possible about your journey into what you're doing right now and kind of what led you to what you're doing.
Amazing. First off, thank you so much for having me on the show. I am very excited for this conversation. So, as you said, very long story short, as of all the intricacies, I dropped out of college in 19, completely did not resonate with the traditional educational model, invested in mentors, working in small startup companies, a lot of time for value, exchange kind of for free situation, and eventually got to a point where I was recruited to be a salesperson at a top sales training and coaching organization, and saw the kind of levels of complete inadequacy of paying attention to clients and how clients were served at that level. And so I decided to take a step back from that, went back to the clients I was working with previously in sales and said, hey, how about you let me run your client success? Because I can probably do a better job than whatever they're doing right now. And fortunately was able to make that happen. So long story short, I've been doing that for about the past 4 years or so. And what I do now from a business side, and the other side is kind of the mental health, anxiety situation. From a business side, what I do right now is I work with founder-led companies to help them do three primary things. One is introduce better client success systems, keep your clients longer, increase LTV. Once that's done, the second thing I'll do is help them with organization of all their front-end marketing content, because the secret that nobody talks about is that once your clients refer you people, once your client's LTV is really high, once you have a really good system in place, you don't even need to do that much marketing, and you can kind of optimize an entire thing to make it, instead of making it 50% of your focus, it's less than 5% of your focus. So that's the hidden strategy. And then the last thing is getting the founder out of those day-to-day apps. So that's on the business side, consulting. On the personal side, which I think is more what we're going to be talking about today, is, growing up, I really just had a lot of issues with anxiety and panic disorder and issues with mental health. Wasn't exactly in a great supportive place with my parents and just kind of foundation to be able to support that. They have issues and faults of their own, and nobody's perfect. But basically left it at the age of 19 with exactly no idea who I was, what I wanted to contribute to the world. And so a couple years of therapy, thought I had it all quote unquote figured out, got into a relationship about 18 months ago, and it all came completely crashing down. And so I've decided to document my entire journey for the past, I would say, year now, of rebuilding, not only just myself within the context of a relationship, but getting to the bottom of, again, those big questions. Who am I? What am I contributing? The biggest thing I want to contribute that I found, and I'm going to be beginning in the next year or two, beginning kind of a public speaking arm business situation, however that ends up coming up, is I find that so many influencers, people that talk about mental health and anxiety online, they stop just short of before getting to the tactical how-tos. They talk about the very surface level things and the woo-woo things, and it's like, somebody pisses you off, you just have to let them and walk away from it. How do you actually do that? You want to do a hard thing, but you don't feel like doing the hard thing. How do you actually do the hard thing? Like, I'm so sick of hearing people say, something like, fuck your mood, follow the plan, or if you don't feel like doing the hard thing, but you need to do it, what would your future self want you to do? It's like, yeah, that's really difficult when you're sitting here like mid panic attack about a bajillion other things. So I really pride myself on having a lot of very specific, very tactical frameworks. Like, cool, these are the 3.5 things you need to do and you need to understand in order to make progress on that. And a lot of it comes down to your expectations, how you treat yourself, your relationship with yourself, communication, and just taking that kind of mentality of getting 1% better every day and just really overanalyzing that to make sure there's a lot of tactical steps. So those are the two worlds in which I operate. So
no, and it's really important. And I think I like at the end there where you brought up about the improve yourself by 1%. And I think that there's times where, and this is speaking of my own experience as well, where I wanted to go to the most extreme, the most successful, the most popular, whatever it was in my younger years. And now it's really turned into, and I learned this in rehab, recovery, through sobriety with alcohol and things like that, was that whole controlling what you can control.
Yep.
But I also appreciate you giving a caveat to the let them theory and the avoidance. I'm going to call it avoidance, and it is. And I speak very highly of the let them theory. I also speak very candidly that the let them go thing, it's an old archaic stoic thing. It's not something new. It's not something trendy. But my problem with it is, just like everything, it's becoming an extreme ideology, and thus is just completely populating avoidance. And I think that I was just in a conversation with somebody a few days ago, and we just put up a clip actually of it. And I said that we've gone to a place with relationships, whether it be romance and intimacy or friendship or even business. And we're treating relationships like we treat articles on our newsfeed. We're taking the title and the clickbait, and then we're judging if we want to go forward on that and only on that. And we're choosing singular ideologies to define an entire human being's life and experience. And also on the flip side, that human being is using those ideologies to define their entire life. And I don't understand, and I'm really happy that we're going to talk about this, to be honest with you, because I'm very passionate about this. I'm very passionate about the fact that I see, and this is not some dystopian thing, but think of it like a thread. And if we have this thread going and there's nothing holding the middle of this thread and both ends are running away from each other, eventually they're going to be so far away that they don't recognize each other. And also the thread's going to snap. And I think it's a lot of ways. And I can speak directly with you and connect with you on the romance side of things. I mean, I was in a relationship where the avoidance was very prominent at the end. And it was very much, the relationship ended, and it was you're dead to me, don't ever speak to me again. And that was in adulthood. And that was complicated because as a kid, I could understand that. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, you move on, and you move on. As an adult, I really had trouble with it. And I still have trouble with it sometimes looking back, where I'm like, man, you share years, or you share weeks, or you share months with this person, and just to be able to just block it out. And I guess it also is indicative of my social media, and people joke around about it. I've been divorced twice, and I'm very open about it. And I know exactly my accountability as well as the others in those processes and in those issues. And I've done everything in my life since those instances to improve my life so that the next relationship that comes around, I'm better than the last one. I'm not going into the next relationship complaining about the last one. I'm going into it with the book full of lessons from the last one. So I guess my long-winded thing here I'm trying to get at is, where's the line, I guess, in your mind? Like, where's the line of the healthy part where when somebody is toxic and weighing you down, letting them kind of disappear in your life because you're trying to keep them as opposed to them keeping you? Where's that line kind of for you as far as that goes? Because there's got to be a little bit of a blend of it,
100%. This is actually really, really interesting. I was just writing podcast notes for my next episode on my podcast that'll be coming out in a couple weeks. Haven't recorded it yet, but it's the title of it is going to be the 5 things I've learned from my relationship. This is the first long-term relationship I've had. I've for just in case it wasn't clear as well, I'm still in the relationship with the same person because we are, such different individuals, and yet we're so committed to loving ourselves and loving each other. So there's a couple things, and actually I'll just literally share exactly from my notes from that podcast, because so much of this overlaps. For thoughts on your question, two things come to mind. Number one, I got this from Dr. Julie Smith. She's very popular on social media. She's one of the only ones that I actually really like on social media in terms of relationship and mindset coaching, etc. She's very tactical, very, down to earth and very step by step, which I love. She says something to the extent of, I'm gonna butcher it, but something to the extent of, when you are in a relationship, it's sometimes very difficult to look at everything objectively. We look at things subjectively because we're in it. We're in the middle of it. It's swirling around in our head constantly. When things go wrong, it's like somebody on the outside looking in is like, okay, yeah, that happened. Got it. Cool. You are like, depending on, what happened, who it happened with, like the situation, the context, everything. It could be this tiny thing. It could be this thing that just completely blows up your mind, and it's all you can think about for days and weeks on end. Just depending on the context of the relationship and the quality, etc. Her way to kind of not necessarily escape that subjectivity, but help you just maybe release a little bit of it and pull back, is if you were to treat your relationship as if you're actually speaking to 5 people. You're speaking to yourself, you're speaking to your partner, you're speaking to your past, you're speaking to your partner's past, and you're speaking to your relationship as it moves forward in the future. So if you can give each of those 5 voices, if you can give each of those 5 entities a voice in terms of what they need, what they want, why they're there, why they want what they want, it helps you to create an overlapping kind of identity between, cool, how do we move this relationship forward while respecting each of these 5 voices? So thanks for credit for that, but I really, really, really freaking love that, because I think, an easy kind of thing to bring up. And this is the second thing, and to use that framework as an example with the second thing. I think so oftentimes, one thing that I've really learned from this relationship and from working with people on mental health is that we do things because we want to solicit a reaction from somebody else. That's how we know that I wouldn't say it's necessarily toxic, because there's a lot of instances where it's like, you buy somebody a gift, you want them to be happy. Like there's, the simple things, but there's also so much that I think, unfortunately, people will say or will do. And it's like, I'm saying this out of a reaction, not, proaction to the relationship I want to build or the person I want to be, etc. So a perfect example of this is actually, I think the I love you conversation is so fascinating, because when people say, they have that initial like, oh, I'm scared to say I love you, or I'm scared to whatever. They're scared to say I love you because they're afraid the other person isn't going to say it back. They're not afraid to say it because they don't feel it. They're afraid to say it because they feel that their efficacy of it, or how important it is, or how valid it is based on what the other person is going to say in response. I don't agree with that at all. I think if you look at this and you say, I'm going to say I love you, or if the other person hasn't said it yet. So for instance, I said I love you first to my partner, my boyfriend. And I said it when I could honestly say to myself, I didn't care what his reaction was going to be, because I was saying it for me. And would I, of course, been a little whatever and in my feelings if he didn't? Of course I would have. That's human. That's natural. But the majority of me was like, listen, I literally can't contain this anymore. I want to say it because I want to move the relationship forward. And the best way that I know how to improve myself is investing in this relationship by investing in me. And so I'm going to do it. And I said it, and he said it back, and I'll, going off into the sunset and yada, yada, yada. But the point is, back to that analogy of kind of the framework of like looking at it from the 5 people. The future relationship wanted me to say it, wanted me to move the relationship forward. I wanted to say it. I didn't know what he wanted because he wasn't a part of that mental conversation in my head. My past was saying, I'm scared to say this. But again, my future was saying, this is either I'm going to say this and this is going to move the relationship forward, or I'm going to say this and the relationship, I trust our emotional, ability. I trust our emotional awareness and our ability to have a conversation about what this means and how we move the relationship forward. So no matter what the outcome was, I was like, basically the things that I can account for here, my past, my present, and my future are all saying this is the right way to go. And so odds are this is going to work out, and it did. And obviously this is a very specific example, but hopefully somebody listening to this can think of an instance, a situation, an argument, a whatever in their relationship, and they're thinking, cool, if I could just maybe, instead of getting butthurt about, he said this or she said that, or this person did this because of it, instead of assigning blame, assigning reason, assigning whatever, just take a step back and ask yourself, what do each of these 5 people or entities, what do each of these 5 people want? And then where is the overlap between moving out of that framework? Where is the overlap between what my partner wants and what I want, and how can we build something together moving forward? So I think objectivity over subjectivity when possible, and also doing things because they're right for you, not because you want to elicit a response from somebody else. I think would be the two things on the mind.
Yeah, it's really, well, first I have one question and one comment. And one question is, did you create that with the different personalities and stuff like that in a different timeline?
No, that's a framework from that Dr. Julie Smith.
Oh, okay, that's from her. Okay, yeah. I didn't know if you got inspiration from her. So what I was going to say was, I kind of got a visceral reaction, goosebumps all over when you started talking about it, because this year I very much have I've been very successful in business and personal friendships and things like that, but I've never been successful in love, and in my entire life, and that is my Achilles heel of my life. So I got divorced about 10 months ago for the second time. And moving forward, it's so weird about the 5, because I have a 5 where now when I'm meeting new people, and I'm not actively dating, but I'm obviously out meeting people all the time. So with anybody, whether it's dating or friendships or business, I have 5 topics that I want to talk about with them, and I go right to it. And it's like, and so I go right at it: religion, politics, music, comedy, and work ethic. And so from there, I weigh out whether or not, like, based on those things in my mind, they have different weights. Each topic has a different weight to me. And so from there, if I can, in the very beginning, even just establish musical interests, comedic interests, different things that are very important to me, I will, when I get back into the dating scene, I'm going to take a different approach than a lot of people. I'm just going to go right out and just be a 40-year-old man and throw all my flags out right off the bat, and just be like, this is me. These are all the faults, and I just don't want to waste your time.
Well, listen, I think that is actually insanely practical, and here's why.
Yeah, that's what I think.
When you own your shit, nobody else can call you out for it. For instance, I'm insanely overdramatic about way too many things. I am an insane overthinker. I overthink absolutely everything. Something I'm working on. I mean, you call out the stuff, and I'm not saying it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm having a bad hair day, like not the trivial stuff. You call out the stuff that like actually possibly might get in the way of relationships, business, success, etc. When you call it out, and you don't have to be proud of it, you don't have to whatever, but you say it's factual, and you're like, listen, this is who I am, but I'm also taking the proper steps to work on it. That is just, it's a way that you can, I'm not going to say filter through people, but it's a way that you can, I think, learn to love yourself while also learning to be with yourself while with somebody else. Because that's one of the things that I learned very early on with respect to my own mental health journey. My biggest concern in getting to a relationship was, how in the world am I ever going to love somebody else while also loving myself? I could not get the two to overlap in my head. And to put it very, very, very simply, the answer, quote unquote, air quotes, if you will, is that if it feels like a choice, you're probably doing the wrong thing. If it feels like a choice between yourself and the other person, it's the wrong situation, it's the wrong choice, it's the wrong opportunity, it's the wrong whatever. And so I think whenever you have two emotionally intelligent people that can see they want to take care of themselves, they want to prioritize themselves, and they're willing to invest in prioritizing the relationship, I genuinely believe everything can become a win, because you're not arguing with them, you're arguing for the relationship with them. You're arguing towards something. You're not trying to place blame, you're not trying to whatever. So
yeah, it goes from a them to an us.
Exactly, 100%. It goes from an accusatory to a I love you, and how can we move this relationship forward? Mm-hmm. Something else that came to mind as well that you were saying is just like your framework of the 5 things, which I love. Something else that comes to mind, I guess from Layla Hermosi, insane Layla Hermosi fan. She's been interviewed countless times about her relationship with her husband, Alex. They're both very successful entrepreneurs. They own a company called acquisition.com, it's a private equity company. And they're very public facing in terms of content and their mission and things like that. And she's been interviewed countless times about her relationship. And the thing she always comes back to, which I just tattooed on my heart, is feelings will always come and go. The intimacy, the butterflies, the rage, the anger, any feeling, positive, negative, amazing, horrible, will always come and go in a relationship. You will never always be attracted. You will never always want to be with the other person. You will never, so building a relationship based on feelings and butterflies, in her opinion, and I completely agree, isn't actually practical, because you don't actually know then, you can have butterflies with anybody. Like, you don't know then technically, not to say what is right or wrong, but you don't know really what then odds are will be that this relationship will be a success in the future. So what she boils it down to is, instead of looking at feelings, you look at three things. You look at a mission, values, and interests. So if your mission is the same in terms of where you want to go in life, and this can be professional, this can be personal, this can be impact driven, whatever, where you want to go is the same. How you want to get there is also the same, which is your values. So your mission is where you want to go. Your values are how you want to get there, what is important to you, what you stand by, who you are, the type of person you want to be on the day to day, right? If your mission is the same, your values are the same. And then lastly, if your interests are the same, which are just simply the things you do when you're bored along the way. If those three things are the same, and you are, 7 days out of 10 attracted to this person, odds are that would be a very successful relationship. And I freaking love that framework.
I do too. I never heard that. I love that.
It takes the pressure off of thinking, oh, I thought this person was really attractive mentally, physically, whatever. I thought this person was really attractive yesterday. I woke up this morning and I didn't feel so hot about it. Well, of course, we're human. We're always going to have fleeting feelings. Feelings never stay the same. But again, those three things, the mission, values, and interests, oftentimes, of course, unless you go through a big life change, those things are going to be pretty, cemented throughout your life.
Well, that ties in nicely with how we were talking about in the beginning, where what's that thread that holds those two extremes together? I think that kind of just answered that question too, because that allows people to realize that, like, the avoidance and let them go and everything like that, that could be the non-extreme. That's the non-extreme counterpoint to it, where it's like, yeah, let them go if all these other things do, but also understand that don't let them go just because you had a bad week. Yes. Or you had a bad month. And I think that's been an issue on myself as well as partners in relationships, where the reaction is, this isn't working, but it's not. There's never been in my life the actual depth to the core of the issue when there's an issue. And I think that's the part I'm excited about moving forward, is because I've changed that about myself in the past 2 years, and especially in the past year, where it's like, if you're in this with me for the long term, I don't care as much about where it's going. And I think a lot of it through therapy for myself as well, I realized was understanding as well. Once I got to the place where I didn't need a single bit of validation from that person, like, that is making me so much more excited about everything else. Because that was, I think, one of the other big issues was I would attach myself and align myself with people because of how they made me feel. And sometimes looking back in my history of my relationships, I ignored the superficiality of some of them because of what they wanted to get from me. And like, they were really good at making me feel better, and that fed my ego. And I realized over time, I was like, my ego is the worst thing about me. So if I can just shed the ego and get it out completely and make it closed off, where nothing's going to feed it, nothing's going to whatever, then I cannot be manipulated as much as possible. And I think there's a bit of an extreme to it. I completely hear it as I'm telling you in real time. But at the same time, there's like, I guess there's going to be little holes that I'm going to need to open up to it. But I think I guess what I'm trying to say is not letting let me rephrase, not letting the ego be the primary focus of how they make me feel, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Hey creators, founders, and dreamers, the FreeMind Network is brought to you by Cowabunga Johnny, where nostalgia meets creativity. Cowabunga Johnny creates custom cards that are perfect for personal keepsakes, team recognition, or even promotional items. These cards pop with personality and make an unforgettable impact. But that's not all. Cowabunga Johnny also crafts larger-than-life murals and nostalgic pop culture-inspired art. It's about connecting with your audience through bold, memorable visuals. Want to learn more? Visit cowabungajohnny.com and see how he's turning memories into art that connects. Let's create something amazing together.
100%. So something to I don't know if challenge is the right word, or just maybe give you just a different perspective. It's something that I really struggled with, like you said, at the very beginning of just essentially really learning how to be in a relationship, is this lack of context of,
yes.
What does this person want? What are they really here for? What am I really here for? What do I want? Like, what are my needs in the thing? Whatever. So two things come to mind, and this is again both going to be in the podcast episode, but again, more than happy to share them here. Two things come to mind. One, I have to give credit to my amazing, freaking incredible friend. His name is Rausch. He wrote a book called The Relationship Recode. He's a men's relationship health coach, etc. And something that a big takeaway from his book, and I'm kind of parsing here, but the one of the main takeaways is at the beginning of a relationship, and genuinely even years into a relationship, we have that kind of inner sense of like judgment of ourselves, of like judgment of ourselves and of the relationship, and then of course of the other person. So judgment is like, ooh, should I have done that differently? Or ooh, how could I do this? Like, how could I show up differently? Or ooh, how could this be? And ooh, I shouldn't have done that. And da 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 da. And then we can shit all over ourselves. We can shit all over the other person because it's like, no, they should have done this. But then we can shit all over the relationship. Like, no, this relationship shouldn't be going here. Da da da. Kind of again from that perspective of like splitting it up into 3 or 5 different things. The context that Rye gives in his book is that A, that is completely normal, but B, the reason it's completely normal, and this is the big takeaway, is that we lack context at the beginning of the relationship. We have to make, and again, not just the beginning, throughout the entire relationship, because it's another person. We can't control, we can't influence the other person. They're not in our heads, we're not in theirs. Our brain, sometimes out of a pure survival instinct, wants to find context, wants to find answers to a lot of those unknown questions. And something that comes up very easily is judgment. I think they did this because of this. And if they did that because of this, then that's horrible. And they're this. And then that means that this. And we go off on all these tangents to try and make sense of what's happening in this very important relationship in our lives. Completely normal. Like take away the judgment of the fact that you judge yourself or the relationship or whatever. Like I think that's one of those things where it's like just the awareness of that, for me at least, just the awareness of that completely shifted my relationship. I was like, listen, I'm not going to try and predict what's going to happen, right? Because that's some of that. It's like, ooh, if he said this, and then I meant this when I said this, and then that means that this is going to happen.
You got the whole mind map going.
Yeah, exactly. Which, if you're an overthinker like me, you can go from like 0 to 10,000 in about 10 seconds.
I'll show you right here. I don't know if it comes up. It just, there's a sticker on there that says, let me overthink this. Yeah, literally, exactly. It's so easy to do that, but just the awareness of it, I think can just radically shift everything. You don't try and overthink everything, try and overplan everything. It's a work in progress, let me tell you. But that shift is huge. The other thing, really quickly, another amazing relationship coach friend of mine, his name is Danny Morales. He actually specifically works with LGBTQ relationships. He says that one of the favorite thing I think he's ever said to me is that you're always allowed to rewrite the rules of your relationship. So just because when you came into a relationship, and this is true for anything, a friendship, relationship, business, goals, etc., anything. When you come into it, oftentimes, if it's as potent of a relationship as most of us want, if it's as impactful as of a relationship as we want to have, it will change us. And when it changes us, we are allowed to become different, hopefully become better versions of ourselves. And when we do that, I'll give you an example of this, and this is like, if you know me, I'm insanely open book. I will tell anybody anything. In my relationship, the past 2 to 3 months has actually been really, really difficult. I went through a period where I was like, I really don't like how this is happening in the relationship. I don't like how we're not spending a lot of intimate time together anymore. I don't like that. And I didn't know how to stand up for myself and for what I needed. And it's like I literally had to kind of learn that on the spot. And so saying some of those things gave me the opportunity needing to say some of those things gave me the opportunity to stand up for what I needed. Not necessarily like stand up as in like, oh, you're doing these things wrong to me, but literally just to come out and say, hey, I need this. My partner was amazing and of course said, cool, I will give you this. Like it wasn't a thing where it's like we fought about it or it was an argument, but it's just the opportunity to do that. So I needed the opportunity to basically to rewrite the rules of my relationship and rewrite the expectations, rewrite the standards, rewrite the whatever. You have the opportunity to do that at any point that you want. And there should be no judgment. There should be no inner like, oh, I wonder what they're going to say about this and da 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 da. There's going to be, and that's okay. But ideally, if you can focus on, listen, the best version of me is now wanting this because I am a different version. I'm a better version of myself, hopefully, now versus when I came into the relationship because I'm always growing. And this new and improved version of myself
I now know that I need X and Y and Z, and I'm going to ask for it. And if this person isn't the person to give me X and Y and Z, they were just the person to show me that I need X and Y and Z, I can live with that. And so rewriting the rules and giving yourself permission to do that, I think, is so powerful.
Well, and it's super important too, because like something that I'll be honest, I'm nervous about is I'm always wondering the whys and the hows. And I'm always wondering like why people make certain decisions and things like that. And something in dating is when you're not upfront in the very beginning about your history, your childhood, your upbringing, like those stories. A lot of times it seems like you don't get that information until 4 or 5, 6 months into the relationship where you really start diving in. If you're not having those conversations in the first like 20, like the 30, 60, 90 days, you don't understand when the conflict comes in on the 5, 6, 7, 8 months, why those people made those decisions and the how. And then when you go, like you just said about the standing up for yourself, that's when things I feel like sometimes go awry, because when you are standing up for yourself, if you're not doing it in the right time and you're emotional in that moment, or it's like a heated conflict and you're standing up for yourself, it gets misconstrued. Whereas another time where you can like sit down in a calm area and talk with your partner and be like, okay, listen, this part irks me a little bit. I'm not like, it's not an alarming thing, but I just want to know, how did you come to this decision? And then why did you come to this decision? I want to understand the core of what's going on. I think that that's something that I overlooked a lot in relationships. And I learned afterwards in therapy that like, even for myself, I guess that's what I'm also trying to say is I'm putting myself out there, to realizing that I also didn't dive deep enough to certain people. And also business wise, I didn't dive deep enough into business. Every single time I've been to court where I had to sue a client before for services rendered and they didn't want to pay. And I had to take them to court because it was enough money that made it worth it. And once I came out of that, I won. And when I came out winning on that, I was like, that was such a stressful thing. And even though I knew going into court I was good, I was never stressed because I knew I had all the documents, like it was cut and dry. But I don't ever want to be in that situation again. And I don't ever want to be, and that's the thing is I've been in court for divorce and I've been in court for business. And I don't know until people are in those situations when you realize like, you're like, shit, I should have just asked this question in the beginning, or I should have asked this in the beginning. When you start to analyze where things went awry, and I guess it's also part of the way we're doing things today. And I think one of the things is not we as a whole. Let me just also say, I don't want to speak in a broad stroke when I say this, but there's a large population of people when they get out of a relationship or out of a marriage, they go back and delete all of that prior life from their social media. And I want to like say something about that, in the sense that like sometimes I get questions from people where they're like, they'll think I'm still married because I have wedding photos in my social media, and I say that, or they'll go on my social media and see 2 different weddings if they go back far enough. And one of those things is like, because my life, I started in social media, I was one of the first people on Facebook in 2005. So my entire life and for the past 20 years is online in photos, and we documented everything just like kids do today. And what I'm trying to get at is that action, while people think it's like, oh, I'm just going to delete that because I don't want to talk about it, because it's like, I want to just avoid it. It doesn't, it actually becomes indicative of other things later on. You know what I mean? And it's really, I've really gone with a different mentality. Like, for example, this tattoo on my arm is from my last marriage. And it's about our marriages, and it's about the kids and all this other stuff. And I get questions every once in a while where people are like, are you going to cover that over? Are you going to delete it? And I said, no. And because it was a very important part of my life, because it didn't continue for the rest of my life, doesn't mean it didn't exist. And it troubles me. It troubles me with that. And going back to the beginning, the let them theory, and it's all relative to that. And it frightens me when people want to delete the building blocks that make them who they are today.
Can I challenge you on something?
Absolutely.
So I could be completely off base, and you can let me know if that's the case. But something that I'm hearing, or just again filling in with my own context and my own ghosts and stuff, is when you say you like to tell people up front, like that's kind of the thing you're going to be going into, is like telling people up front, like, hey, listen, this is this. I swing this way. I'm this way. Vote this way. All the things, right? Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I get the sense that's coming from a lack of trust in either yourself and in them. yourself and or in them, and in the natural process of getting to know someone. And it's almost like you want to cut to the point where you can have the least loss of blood. You want to cut to the point where it's like you can stop the bleeding. You can get to it where it's like, cool, we're going to get all the big things out of the way. Is that at all?
You nailed it, man. You nailed it. Yeah, don't ever hold back with me. You can always.
What I would
I'm an open book.
No. So what I would say to that.
It's a protection and an efficiency, I think, as the way I justify it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, listen, like I'm absolutely never ever going to be the person to be like, this is the right way to go. This is not, like, I'm not a black and white. I'm everything is gray. The only thing I would say, if you're open to it, as just someone who had to learn. I have been through seasons of my life where one season I had to learn to trust myself, then I had to learn to trust others, then I had to learn to trust my partner, in 3 very distinct, very different seasons. And I still work on all 3. The thing that I learned, I think the phrase that sums it up the best is, do I trust the influence? So whether it's ourselves, whether it's friends, relationships, or even as somebody as intimate as our partner, everyone has influence over us. We can avoid it. We can try to not make it there, but it's gonna be there. We influence everyone, even the smallest things, right? It's like, when's the last time? We see it all the time on the news, and this and that, Like, somebody did one tiny little thing that made somebody's day, and then that did this, and then that, like, a training action. We can't avoid the influence, so we might as well embrace it. So if you ask yourself, do I trust myself when I am with this person? And do I trust their influence over me? Because I think if you can create relationships from a foundation of not personal protection, but from personal development, from personal growth, and say, listen, I want to contribute everything I can from this relationship, everything I can to this relationship, and move the relationship forward, friends, relationship, whatever. But also, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that they will have an impact on me, and I'm going to be very careful about what that impact is, who's making that impact, why they're making that impact, etc. And so sometimes people are with you for a season, sometimes people are with you for a very specific reason, sometimes they're with you for the rest of your life, and you don't get to know which is which. So back to the challenge, or just a small piece of advice, if you're open to it, is maybe perhaps instead of looking at it like, I want to get through the big things that could turn somebody off. Instead, ask yourself, based on the limited knowledge, because it is limited knowledge, right? And that's just the reality of it at the very beginning. Based on the limited knowledge that I have, and based on the trust I find in myself to identify and even deter influences I don't want to have, do I trust this person's influence on me with the limited information that I have? And basically, at any point in time where something big is revealed, where a natural kind of occurrence happens in the relationship, where it's a shift, somebody says I love you, somebody moves in, somebody says an opinion that you didn't know that the other person had, whatever it is, you give yourself permission to reevaluate that question, and maybe even you co-create that question, and you say with the other person, and you say, listen, the influence you've had on me because of this thing or because of this opinion you have is XYZ. I don't necessarily like that. How can we create a better influence? Because I'm protecting myself. This relationship is for me, it's for you, and it's for us. So I'm not being fulfilled by this particular part of the relationship. How can we make it so that we can co-create a better influence over me, and then therefore a better influence on the relationship? And so instead of looking at it just perhaps from a thing of like, I'm trying to get it all out of the way, is like, don't steal the natural intimacy and the natural progression from a relationship just because you're nervous about where it might lead.
I really appreciate what you just said. That's really powerful for me to process in a good way. Because I admit, and I'm accountable to, it was built from relationships that failed and different things that went wrong. And then also it's built with, my college degree is in corporate communications and public relations, and I spent my entire career influencing people and manipulating people. And I say that, and I use the word manipulation on purpose, because I did. I mean, we did manipulation and product sales and things like that, where we were like literally, for when I worked in the alcohol industry, we would sit in a boardroom and we only had so many holidays a year. And if sales were dipping, we literally would be like, okay, let's create some more drinking. We called them occasions. And we were like, okay, let's create some more occasions. And now looking back in my own sobriety, I'm like looking at those moments and I'm like, wow. Like, you know what I mean? Like and then so what I guess I'm trying to say is my education and my professional experience allowed me to understand how easy it is to manipulate people. And I also in the past year have made a principled effort to never manipulate anybody, in the sense that I changed everything in my life to showing, not selling. So I really appreciate what you're saying, because I realized as we're talking, I took that to an extreme in that moment. I'm realizing this in real time, that I even took that to an extreme where it could be. And also, I really appreciate what you said about the flow, because that's really important to me. Natural and authentic interactions and feelings are really important. So I did not consider that while that protects me, that's really just a kamikaze mission to disrupt the flow of what could exist. Yeah.
100%.
Wow. I really appreciate that.
I think there's also absolutely something to be said for being honest with yourself about the, I don't even know if we want to say it, fear. I think that gives it more power than it deserves. About the anxiety, the feelings, whatever is behind, the apprehension toward moving forward. That absolutely deserves a place. That deserves a book on the bookshelf, right? Like that deserves a voice. That deserves something, because, it would be foolish of you to ignore the evidence that your life has thus far provided you in terms of what is possible from a relationship, or what isn't possible, rather, right? We all have evidence as to why things will work and why things won't work, depending on our past and depending on our beliefs and everything. So it would be foolish to ignore all of that. The thing that, and again, I'll go back to Layla Hermosi, something I really love that she says is that, if you got all these books on that analogy is from her as well. If you got all these books on the bookshelf telling you all these different stories, you get to choose which one you read. You get to choose which one you pick up and you look at for the day or for the whatever. Take what you want and leave the rest, right? Like you've had experiences. We all have had experiences that if we look at it from one light, will show us A, B, and C. If we look at it from another light, will show us X and Y and Z. We get to choose, and sometimes it's obviously much harder to look at things one way or the other, especially if we're in our feelings, or especially if there's something coming up. But you get to choose what story you write about the past, and also you get to choose what story you write in the present because of the past influence. So the experiences you've had deserve a voice. It's up to you to mold that into something productive moving forward.
That's really powerful. I really appreciate this conversation. Yeah, this is a very much like you just said, not an ability to rewrite the rules. And I'm very glad that I listened to you prior to jumping into the pool. So, while I didn't intend on this being a therapy session for me, I feel very good. It's continuing with with people understanding that this is a real podcast. This is real stories and real things. And we have a few minutes left on here, and I want to make sure. I do want to say something, and I want to remind people that while there's no prep at all, we literally just go into this. These are two strangers talking, so please don't roll your eyes and think we're feeding you something from textbooks. There is no prep at all, and also to the point is I have 20 questions on my screen here, and I've not asked one of them yet, and that's okay. That is okay because this is what we wanted to talk about, because this is important. Because the number one thing I think this is important is I think that we as a society, and I am going to broad stroke this, I think we as a society are becoming more isolated on a daily basis. And I don't mean isolated in a physical sense like during COVID. I mean isolated from a social standpoint. I think that we are cutting ties really fast. We are running from things really fast. And I am fearful about 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, how that orchestrates and how that builds the new infrastructure of society. And I think that we're seeing it on a very small scale right now. And it's the same way I felt when I started this business. I started this business in 2008. And I was just talking with my partner this morning. And I reminded him, we were in college when I started it. We lived together, and when I started it, the original logo wasn't FreeMind. It was at the beginning of social media. So it was 2008. So we're 3 years into Facebook. We're coming on the tail end of MySpace at that time. And from our world prior to that, prior to the internet, well, we got to experience a little bit as teens and tweens in elementary, to now in high school to college and beyond with social media. You know, I luckily got to have a high school career where Facebook wasn't around, and we're the last generation that really got to experience high school. We started with college with social media, and I guess what I'm trying to say is the logo. What I was getting back to was the escape button, and it was ESC was the logo of the business, and it was called Experience Social Connections, because back in 2008. I loved everything about social media and made a career out of it. At the same time, I saw the pitfalls and I saw what was going to happen. And sitting back now, it's not because I had high intelligence. It's because of pattern recognition, and it's because of emotions, and it's because of seeing relationships. I saw and I told everybody what was going to happen 20 years and 15 years from now. And to be honest with you, it exceeded what I had predicted. And that's where I never even predicted ads or anything like that. Wasn't even part of my thing too. So in my prediction, it was just about people and the relationships on Facebook. I did not even think about corporate influence into algorithms and news feeds and stuff like that. So,
well, and I think this is actually a really, really interesting thing to wrap up on, which is, I'm actually going to contradict a small thing of what you said. I don't think it's on a small scale. Like, I think it's right. I think it's on a very large scale that not a lot of people are wrapping their heads around quite yet.
Sorry, 2008, at that time, it was a small scale. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
And I mean, in terms of like, you know, you're saying like the next 5, 10, 15 years, like, so where I'm going with this is actually one of the primary reasons why I wanted to start making content around all of this is, I genuinely could not believe, and this is still something I'm struggling on. So I'm not preaching from a podium here or anything. This is a day-to-day thing. I genuinely cannot believe the lack of discipline and self-control that I mean, I'm not even going to say people, that I have had in seasons of my life, for the majority of my life. I've lived more of my life where I felt like I had no control over, no influence over what I did in my daily things, because I was so bombarded by the dopamine rush of needing the next thing and the social media and the post this and the than I have lived where I feel that I have even some semblance of influence over how I operate on a day-to-day basis. You know, I mean, the typical example, not typical as in like overused, typical I think is a really, really important, very scary example is, I mean, just health in general in this country. You know, if you look at pictures of people in the 70s, 80s, even 60s on the beach, everyone's skinny. Like everyone, no, and of course there's a lot to do with this in terms of like, you know, the food industry and all the crap they put in our foods now these days and yada, yada, yada. But the point is, you know, with social media and how that has triggered our brains into an over indexing and an over creation of dopamine, that boils over in so many ways that I don't think people are even ready to admit to themselves yet in their life for how they approach the hard things, how they approach different. Like, I think people look for comfort 24/7. They look for either you know, to have a positive affect or to remain neutral 24/7. The moment that they dip into even something slightly negative or slightly uncomfortable in anything, whether it's physical, mental, whatever, it's this need, it's this urge, it's this just involuntary reaction to say, "Ooh, no, I can't have that. I need to run from that. I need to go back to the neutral or to the positive." And that's been brought on by this ability to watch a 10-second thing on Instagram at second 11. If you don't like it, you don't have to go and click the remote anymore to say, you know, oh, I'm going to pause this thing and then I'm going to go back, and then while it's still playing in the background or whatever, and then I'm going to choose another show and then I'm going to do this, da 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 da. Or even back further, it's like, no, I need to go and fully change the channel. I need to scroll through the guide to see what's that. Like, I mean, you can literally control the amount of dopamine in your head at any given time using social. It's insane. And so the point I'm making with all this, again, a good thing to wrap up on, I think it's like the ability to sit in discomfort is, I think, for this the foreseeable future will always be the skill that I look to hone the most personally. And again, not preaching from a podium here. This is, depending on the day you're going to catch me on, I'm either really good or really bad at this. The ability to look at something hard and dissociate the feeling with it, and to say, this difficult thing that I need to do or I want to do to get to an outcome that I want, just going to let it be hard. I don't have to feel shitty about it. I don't have to feel any certain way about myself. It's just going to be hard. I'm not going to associate a feeling with it, thereby making it 10 times harder. Alex Ramosi, one of my favorite lines from Alex Ramosi, Layla's husband, is expecting something to be easy is actually what makes it harder. Like, the thing that you want, the thing that you need to do is not actually difficult. You will not die by doing it. You will not exert an inordinate amount of physical or mental energy. The reason it's difficult is because all the feelings that come up before and during while you're doing it. But the moment it's over, you're fine. Not because you're done with it, but because all the feelings are gone. So all that being said is that's personally, in relationship, in business, and everything, that is a personal aspiration of mine over the next, however much seasons of my life. But
we're lined up. We're lined up on that for sure. It's one of those things where I have this in the past year. It's my whole life I was obsessed with never going to bed angry. So if I had a conflict in business or personal or romantic, it was like I needed to fix it right then and there. And I couldn't go to sleep. I would have insomnia and all kinds of stuff. And what I've now adapted it to is this isn't an avoidance thing. So it's going to sound extreme, but it's not. But basically, let's say it's 3 p.m. and the incident happens. I think we talked about this a bit on the discovery meeting, was I will sit in those feelings all night. And I will own those feelings, and I will not escape those feelings. But as soon as that sun rises, that's my guardrail. So the next morning, it's either fix the issue, or or put the issue aside until something naturally comes to it. But I don't stay focused on the primary, and that's not my primary focus, is those feelings. That has helped me in the past, especially 6 to 10 months, so much. And I'm not waking up the next morning and forgetting about it. That's not what I'm saying. It's tabling it and allowing either time. Sometimes time does solve those things. You know what I mean? And that's the one thing I never realized. I actually realized I don't have to control it sometimes. I can just let time fix it.
No, 100%. And I think that the ability to let your feelings run out and run their course, I think is such an underrated ability to dealing with your feelings. I love this book. I forget who it's by, but it's called 90 Seconds of the Life You Love. It's based on the premise that your body, actually, your nervous system actually has the ability, a built-in response to evacuate and flood out your system of hormones that come in that make you anxious, make you nervous, make you angry, make you whatever. If you can get it into your body and accept it, you only need 90 seconds and then it will be gone. The thing that keeps it there is if you keep thinking about it, you keep ruminating on it, you keep letting it, whatever. And some feelings are going to take longer because they're bigger and bigger things happen, and that's fine. But the point is the ability to quote unquote, run the motor out on your feelings, and it's to run the gas out of the tank on your feelings before looking at it and saying, or just being able to say, cool, listen, I'm not going to be able to think objectively about this until I just let the gas run out of this car. I'm just going to let the gas run out. And then you do it, and then you're like, cool, I'm not angry about it, or if I am, I'm much less. I'm not in my feelings about this. I can look at this objectively, and I can say, cool, what's the best way forward? No, not avoidant at all. I think that's super practical.
I think I like that. Let the gas run out. I like that. I have one last question for you, and then I gotta hop quickly. So
I do as well.
the next episode. But real quick, 3 songs you want played at your funeral, and I'm gonna make a Spotify list with all the guests' songs.
3 songs I want played at my funeral. Oh my god. They're all going to be Taylor Swift. Is that okay?
Yes. All right.
Oh my god. Wow. Okay. 3 songs I want played at my funeral. 3 songs I want played at my funeral.
My kids pick on me because I've been a Swiftie since her and I are about the same age, and I've been a Swiftie since the first song hit the radio. Yeah.
I'm a huge Swiftie.
I'm 6'3", 300-pound burly man that loves Taylor.
Yeah, no, I love it. No. Crap, 3 songs. Hang on a second. I can get.
You're good. You're good.
Hang on. 3 songs I want played at my funeral. Okay. One would be To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I think that's an amazing song for letting your, again, kind of thing we were talking about of taking what you want from your past and letting go of the rest, and improving yourself. 2, I would say, Enchanted, because I think that's just such a baseline, amazing Taylor Swift song, and everybody gets to it. The third I would say is off of Tortured Poets Department, with Daddy I Love Him.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Bradley, thank you so much for the time today. I want to remind everybody that's listening that there is no agenda, there's no script. This is two strangers connecting in real time. Our goal and mission of this podcast is to make people realize that anybody can connect with anybody, and it doesn't matter what's going on and what's going on in anything, and it doesn't have to have an agenda, and it doesn't have to have a script. And we want to encourage everybody to go out, meet people, genuinely socialize, and pull the layers of the onion and find out who people really are. So Bradley, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm really looking forward to more conversations with you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
You enjoy the rest of your day, bud.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.